This lecture is about 2 units from page 121 of James Joyce's Finnegans Wake. The first unit, near the top of the page, runs from lines 8 to 16, and the second, at the bottom, runs from lines 31 to 36. When I say unit, what I mean is a segment of Finnegans Wake text that is between the colons or semicolons. This punctuation is important because it parodies the punctuation and therefore also the rhythm and cadence of the opening lines of Sir Edward Sullivan's early 20th century introduction to the Book of Kells, which is one of the principal source texts for this passage of Finnegans Wake. The larger Finnegans Wake passage at the end of Book 1, Chapter 5, runs roughly from page 119 to page 123. It contains 38 colons or semicolons, which ventriloquize and expand the 8 semicolons from the first page of Sullivan's introduction. You can see Sullivan's intro on the left and the first 4 words of each Finnegans Wake unit on the right. I will read Sullivan's opening. Its weird and commanding beauty, its subdued and goldless coloring, the baffling intricacy of its fearless designs, the clean, unwavering sweep of rounded spiral, the creeping undulations of serpentine forms that writhe in artistic profusion throughout the mazes of its decorations, the strong and legible minuscule of its text, the quaintness of its striking portraiture, the unwearied reverence and patient labor that brought it into being, all of which combined go to make up the Book of Kells, have raised this ancient Irish volume to a position of abiding preeminence amongst the illuminated manuscripts of the world. Joyce takes Sullivan's text from these opening lines and mimics its scholarly voice over the course of about 4 pages of Finnegans Wake. You can see an outline of those pages on the right. The larger chapter that contains them is itself a rather brutal satire of pedantic scholarship. And clearly, one of the main objects of that satire is Edward Sullivan. He's one of a group of late 19th century, early 20th century scholars whose work focuses around the Book of Kells. The Book of Kells, of course, as we just read, is a weird and commanding illuminated manuscript from ancient Ireland. There on the right are the 2 units I will discuss today. I think 28 and 29 are a single unit, what I'm calling the bottom unit, because the colon that comes before the words the scholiast is located within a parenthesis, so it could just be a regular colon rather than a Sullivan-esque colon. Who really knows? In addition to Sullivan, the other books I'll be referring to are the actual Book of Kells and Buffalo Notebook 6B6, which contains the notes that Joyce scribbled down as he was reading Sullivan, along with other notes he was taking on other things he was reading. By using these reference books, I've tried to illuminate sections of Book 1, Chapter 5. Here is Unit 1, lines 8 to 16 of page 121. The curious warning sign before our proto-parents ipsissima verba, a very pure nondescript, by the way, sometimes a palm-tailed otter, more often the arbutus fruit flower leaf of the cane apple, which paleographers call a leak in the thatch, or the errand man imperwis through the hole of his hat, indicating that the words which follow may be taken in any order desired, Whole of Aaron man the hat through the whispering his hoe. Here, keen again and begin again to make sound sense and sense sound kin again. In order to better understand this unit, let's apply the reference books. There is a lot going on in this slide. Let's go step by step. On the right are 2 pages, 63 on top and 61 below, from the Buffalo Notebook. On page 63, we see Joyce takes 3 notes as he's reading a passage of Sullivan's introduction. The notes are dialect of art, nondescript, and fern tale. This comes from one of several passages in Sullivan's introduction in which he is quoting another scholar named J.A. Brunn. Brunn has an argument about foliageous ornament, which Sullivan rehearses and then quibbles with. Sullivan mentions Brunn's foliageous ornament argument on pages 27 and 28 of his introduction, right after describing the wide disagreement among scholars about the date of the Kells manuscript. Brunn's claim is that foliageous ornament is absent in the period of Irish illumination prior to the Book of Kells. Sullivan quibbles that because so few specimens survived, it could be the case that evidence to undo Brunn's claim did indeed exist, but has since been lost or destroyed. Sullivan returns to this notion and elaborates it on pages 40 and 41. Here we see Brunn's claim given as a direct quotation. Foliageous ornament is entirely unknown in the Celtic illuminated manuscripts of the earlier period. Then comes a more extensive quote from Brunn in which he identifies one particular type of foliageous ornament, the kind where it's connected to an animal form. I'll read from the second to last line on the bottom of page 40. More general, however, is a less rational connection of leaf design with zoomorphic patterns. Thus, a branch of foliage is frequently seen to evolve from between the open jaws of a nondescript, while at the same time, the tail of the beast presents the appearance of a trefoil or lance-shaped leaf. The yellow boxes on Brunn's words show notes that Joyce wrote down. This is followed again by Sullivan's quibble. If you'd like to read Sullivan's logic behind his quibble, you can pause the video now and read the text in that red box. Returning to Finnegans Wake, we see, in the first parentheses of this unit, that Joyce is ventriloquizing not Sullivan, but Brunn. The parenthesis reads, a very pure nondescript. By the way, sometimes a palm-tailed otter, more often the arbutus fruit flower leaf of the cane apple. Specifically, Joyce is describing zoomorphic forms with foliageous ornament issuing forth from mouth and tail. Regarding the plant material evolving from between the jaws of the nondescript, Joyce names it the arbutus fruit flower leaf of the cane apple. Thanks to the Buffalo Notebook, we can see exactly where that phrase comes from. In proximity to his notes on Sullivan, Joyce also took a note on a newspaper article about the arbutus tree. One of nature's curiosities, this article says, yielding leaf, flower, and fruit at the same time. The article also comments on the edibility of the fruit, which means that while Joyce is thinking about Brunn's nondescripts from the Book of Kells, he identifies them as not just having foliageous ornament, but as eating a specific type of fruit flower leaf. And finally, Joyce conflates these little foliageous creatures with a device called the turn under the path, or as Joyce puts it, a leak in the thatch. In Sullivan's actual scholarship, we learn that it's the symbol C, and sometimes a small man apparently in the act of jumping, which signal to the reader that the turn under the path is in effect. When that happens, it indicates, as Sullivan says, that the words which immediately follow are to be read after the end of the next full line. In Joyce's impersonation of Sullivan, however, it's Brun's foliageous nondescripts that function as the leak in the thatch symbol. And what they're eating is no mere foliage. It's the cane apples. Here is Unit 2, lines 31 to 36, from page 121. The gypsy mating of a grand stylish grave digging with the second best buns. An interpolation. These Munchables occur only in the Brotfressor family of manuscripts. BB, Cod 4, Pap 2, Breck 11, Lun 3, Din 17, Sup 30, Full Up 1000, 500, 100, 10, 100. The scholiast has hungrily misheard a dead man's toller as a muffin bell. In order to better understand this unit, let's again apply the reference books. And again, it's these two sections of Sullivan where Sullivan is contemplating Brun's earlier scholarship regarding the date of the Kells manuscript. Here, the edibility of the cane apple suffuses the entire unit. For example, we see buns, munchables, breakfast, lunch, dinner, supper, full up. And at the end, we see the scholar is so hungry from long hours of poring over the Book of Kells that she or he mistakes a death knell for a muffin bell, which is the bell that the muffin seller rings to sell muffins. There also seems to be a direct line from Brun's description of the nondescripts with foliage in their mouths to the idea that the foliage is actually the edible berries from the arbutus tree, and that indicates something about the date of the document, since, as Brun and Sullivan know, comparing instances of particular ornamentation across coeval manuscripts is one way to venture a guess about the age of a manuscript whose birthday is not exactly known. In this unit, as Professor Elkins observes, Brun's name is practically in the list of codices. Breck and Lun, when they're elided, form Brun. Here are the analysis slides of both Finnegans Wake units from page 121. A slide like this can begin to look rather bogged down, but it gives us a good list of things that we might try to keep in mind as we're reading this section, and in particular, these two units. First, let's hold in mind the foliageous nondescripts from the Book of Kells. Then, let's hold in mind the arbutus tree, called also the Irish strawberry tree, because of its prevalence in Ireland and the resemblance of its fruit to strawberries. The fruit, called cane apples, is edible but takes 2 years to develop, the flowers of one year becoming the fruit of the next. Usually, the tree yields leaf, flower, and fruit at the same time. And finally, let's keep in mind Kells' scholarship as presented in Sullivan's introduction, particularly the wide disagreement about the date of the Kells manuscript, Brun's description of the nondescripts as having foliage at the mouths and tails, Brun's claim that foliageous ornament does not occur before the Kells manuscript, Sullivan's quibble with this claim of Brun's, and Sullivan's discussion of the turn under the path as an instruction for the order in which the words of the book are supposed to be read. It may seem like a lot to hold in mind in order to better understand just over 100 words. It is. It grinds to a halt the kind of reading we're used to with most other books. But as with the Book of Kells, so too with Finnegans Wake. A closer inspection can be richly rewarding.